Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call to order the September 12th, 2017 regularly scheduled meeting of the Alexander County Board of Education to order. And I would like to ask everyone to have a moment of silence and to remember the blessings that we have in our system. Okay, thank you. We're going to start with our Pledge of Allegiance, and we have Connor Beal. He's a 5th grade student at Bethlehem Elementary School here to lead us in the pledge. Connor is the son of Dustin and Natalie Beal and the grandson of David and Rosalind Starnes, and he's in Miss Ashley Bumgarner's homeroom at Bethlehem Elementary School. Thank you for coming in the rain. You're going to lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
I need to add that Connor's grandmother, Rosalind Starnes, worked at Bethlehem Elementary, Natalie, for 30 years, all 30 years. Well, she was a teacher assistant at Bethlehem and just wonderful. So Connor, please tell your grandmother I send my regards, okay?
Thank you for coming. Board members, you've had a chance to look over the agenda that was in your packet for a couple days. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, additions, or deletions? All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And now I'd like to recognize Dr. Hefner for our honors and recognitions portion of our meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. Board Member Odom, would you come and assist me, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. It's always my pleasure to present the honors and recognition portion of the board meeting. Tonight, we're going to be recognizing our Math Teacher of the Year, Monica Mitchell. Each year, school principals in North Carolina schools are encouraged to nominate the teacher they believe does the most effective job teaching mathematics in their school. For those nominated, each LEA selects one teacher to represent the best in mathematics teaching from the entire system. The teacher selected from each LEA receives a 1-year membership in the North Carolina Council of Teachers of Mathematics, recognition at the State Mathematics Conference, and a special memento of the occasion. The 2016-17 Mathematics Teacher of the Year for Alexander County is Monica Mitchell. Monica is a teacher at Ellendale Elementary School, and she's in her 24th year of teaching in Alexander County, all of which has been at Ellendale. Ms. Mitchell is a graduate of Appalachian State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in elementary education. She was selected as Ellendale's Teacher of the Year in 2003 and 2013. She's married to Scott Mitchell, and the couple has 2 children. Their oldest son, Landon Mitchell, is a sophomore at UNC Greensboro, and Grant Mitchell is a senior at Alexander Central. Everyone at Ellendale knows Miss Mitchell as the M&M teacher, as she has M&M figures of all sorts and every decoration imaginable throughout her classroom. So the next time I'm at Ellendale, I'm coming to get an M&M. Congratulations to our 2016-17 Mathematics Teacher of the Year, Monica Mitchell.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Great, thank you. No one has signed up for public comment, so we will move to the consent agenda. Board members, you've had an opportunity to look that information over. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a
Second.
second? Thank you. Motion to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And we'll move on to our report section. And we have the audit, an audit report for the year ending June 30th of 2017 by Michael Wyke. It was good to speak with you the other day. Thank you for coming.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Hefner, pleased to be here tonight. As you said, it's the audit report for the year ending June 30th, 2017. I think each of you have an electronic copy of the report. I'm just going to try to hit the highlights. If there's anything, if you've looked at it, have any questions, anything I go over, feel free to stop me at that point, and we'll try to answer those questions as best I can. But within the main financial statements, there's actually 4 opinion letters that we issue as your independent CPAs on these statements. The first one is on the actual financial statements, the numbers portion. And pleased to report that we issued an unqualified opinion on that, or unmodified. They changed the terms on that. But essentially what that means is there were no items that we noted during the course of our audit that would cause us to modify our opinion. That would be something where we said everything was in accordance with the accounting standards and appropriately presented, except for this item that would cause us to modify it. So it's commonly referred to as a clean audit report, so please report that. Then in the back of that document, you're going to find 3 reports on the compliance portion of the audit. And the compliance portion really takes more time than the financial portion. This is where we're looking at compliance with all the applicable federal and state grants, as well as just sound internal controls, making sure that there's policies and procedures in place at the district, all the way down to the school level, to make sure that there's not going to be a material error in the numbers or misappropriation of assets. Your controls to make sure that we've got the policies and procedures in place to make sure that money just isn't walking out the door. So that's really what we're looking at primarily on those. So on all 3 of those reports, again, clean audit reports on those, so please report that. If we notice any items, you can still have what's called a financial statement finding on internal controls, even though it's a clean report. And we did not notice anything that would be a finding to report in the statements either. To mention the actual numbers a little bit, and again, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, I do want to warn you, if you look at the statements, I always tell you every year, don't focus in on exhibits 1 and 2. These are the government-wide statements. They include your fixed assets and your pension liabilities. And that's something where if you look at that in bottom number net position, you think that's your assets, that's really just not accurate for you guys to manage off of, because you're not going to go out and sell a school or anything like that to come up with funding. So what you want to look at is the fund financial statements, and those are the ones that start on Exhibit 3. And normally what people focus on the school boards is going to be your general fund balance, the money that comes from Alexander County. And on that fund balance, we lost about $300,000 this year. And over the course of these years, if y'all remember back, several of the members have been here for several years, whenever we had the ARA money, Alexander County built the fund balance up. And in my opinion, that's what the district should have done. They did not use that, didn't spend that extra federal money when they got it, sort of saved that for the rainy day. And now you're sort of bleeding that down a little bit by bit. The thing is, just always make sure that you keep a mindful eye on that now, because it's been several years that we're sort of bleeding it down a little bit, and you don't want that fund balance to get too low and to make cuts if you need to as it keeps going down. The thing is, there's one section in here where it talks about your pension liability, and it shows your covered salaries for the past 4 years. And this covered salaries of being full-time employees who are subject to earning retirement and health care benefits. Those numbers are about $26 million rough for the past 4 years. Everyone here knows that there's been some raises that's going on in those past 4 years, probably 7 to 10% roughly if you tuck it on the whole average for the district. So what that really tells you, if your dollars are constant, but you've been paying these raises, what's really happened is you're doing the same work with less people. And I think I'm probably not telling anyone here, but that's just the general challenges and struggles that the boards of education are facing right now throughout North Carolina. The other thing on the numbers portion I wanted to touch on is on the school food service program. And this is another item that we mention every year. The general fund is having to fund money into the school food service program during the years to help cover their operating costs. I think things are getting a little bit better on that. I discussed that with management. I think they're still working diligently on that to try to come up with ideas as how to save money going forward. We just want to make sure that we mention that as an area that I would suggest management to continue to focus on going forward on that. But in addition to that, that's all I was going to go over on the actual numbers portion. You have two other documents, or PDF documents in front of you. One is a required communications document. This is information that we are required by our professional standards to communicate to the Board of Education, and I'm not going to go through that in detail. The main thing here is to know that we encountered no difficulties in dealing with management throughout the course of the audit. We go out and visit with the individual schools, all the different department heads, and whenever we ask for information, we're giving that information timely. Any documents we want to see is given to us, and normally within the hour or two. I get worried whenever I ask for a document, I don't get it till 3 days later. Because obviously as an auditor, I'm sitting here thinking, well, do they really have this document? They have to create it to give it to me. So, I'm very appreciative of the openness and that information whenever we need that. So pleased to report that. And there were no disagreements with management. If we have a disagreement with an accounting treatment of a specific item, we report that to the governing board. We noted no such items during the scope of our audit. There was one item that's in a management letter, and this would be something that we are required to report to the board. That would be an internal control or a compliance violation that is not significant enough to go into the actual financial statements. There was one teacher at the high school that had a snack shack that was operating that was in conflict with the Department of Agriculture's rules for competitive food. In the end, you can't sell any snacks during the lunch hours. That would, the USDA says if you're selling snacks, that's taking money away from the USDA program. But immediately when management found out about this program, they stopped it, so it's not an issue going forward. But again, something that we are indeed required to report on that. Does anyone have any questions about the audit whatsoever?
Anyone? No? Okay.
But we're very appreciative of management, everyone in the finance department, and all the department heads. They help us out and make things go as smoothly as possible.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay. I'd now like to recognize Glendora Yarborough for Communities and Schools update. How are you? Good.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board Chair members, and Dr. Hefner. I'm glad to be here this afternoon. I just wanted to give you a brief update on Communities and Schools. And the very first thing I wanted to tell you is that we have a new name. Well, I think it's a new name, but when I was thinking about what I was going to say this afternoon, I realized that we've almost had our new name for a year now. So we are Communities and Schools of Northwest North Carolina. And it's due in part to being in Alexander County, so we're excited about that. But we also are expanding into Ashe County. And we could not feel that we would be justified to keep our name as Communities and Schools of Wilkes when we were expanding into, we had already expanded into Alexander County in 2012, and now expanding into Ashe County. We felt like it was time for us to change our name, and our board decided on the name of Communities and Schools of Northwest North Carolina. So wanted to give you that little update, and also you probably already know this, but I wanted to tell you where the site coordinators are in your schools. Brittany Myers is at Taylorsville and Stony Point Elementary. She's splitting those two schools. We have Jordan Mundy, who is at Hidnight Elementary, and Stephanie Davis is teaching freshman success at the high school. We also received a grant this past grant cycle from JCPC, Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, to bring Strengthening Families to Alexander County. We're very, very excited about that. We'll have our very first class September the 28th. Those classes will be 14 classes, so there'll be 7 weeks with 2 each week on Mondays and Thursdays. Stephanie and Angie Yates will be teaching the parent component. And the way it works is the families will come together and have a meal, and then they'll separate, and the parents will go in one classroom, and Stephanie and Angie will teach that class, and then Brittany and Jordan will teach the teen class, and I'll be their site coordinator to be there every meeting, just to make sure that things go well, and if there's any kind of issues with the families or anything that, we had a training, a 2-day training that we went to learn about strengthening families. And I think it's gonna be an amazing program. It's evidence-based, and it will be mandated through the court, and then we'll open it up to other families as well.
Great.
So we're excited about that. And we'll have 2 sessions of that, starting September to about November, and then starting back in January to have them again until about April. You should have received in the mail an invitation to Racial Challenge. Did you receive that? I wanted to personally invite you to that. That is next Tuesday at the high school auditorium. It's from 6 to 7, and it's an informational meeting, and everybody here is invited, and invite your family and friends. It's to learn about Rachel's Challenge and how to spread kindness in Alexander County. That's through another grant that we got through Duke Energy, so we're very, very excited about that. And I gave you this little, well, Dr. Hefner passed this out, and it says Caitlin Picken, and that's because she's our Resource Development Director, and we just got these today, and I asked her if I could bring them. I'm Glendora, but she's going to be giving these out to donors, and so we wanted to give you one. But as I was looking at the back of it, well, inside is our CIS model. This is Communities in Schools model, and we are evidence-based, and so this is what we bring into the schools. So I'm not going to go over that, but I wanted you to look at the snapshot on the back. And I have to be honest and say I only looked at it when I was sitting right there. And so the very first one where it says total sites served, it says 26%. Just take that percent sign off. I don't know why our printer put that percent. It's 26 schools. So in the 2 counties, we serve 26 schools. And you can see that we serve 12,715 students in both the counties, and case managed 356 students. So that once again, that percentage sign needs to come off of there. But you can look at the percentage. We're data driven. Every student that we serve, those 356 students, they are entered into a data system through our state and national office. And so according to what the student's needs are. So if, let's say that a student was missing a lot of school, and their goal could be attendance. So of those 356 students, 98% who we listed as needing a goal to improve their attendance, 98% of those students improved. So does that, you can see the numbers there, that if there was a behavior goal, then 97% of those 356 students improved. And this is third-party evaluated, so it goes to our state and national office, but then it goes out to a third party to evaluate to make sure that it's true, which we're proud of that. So you can see, well, 100%, if they had a academic issue, 100% of those 356 students. Now, that doesn't mean that all 356 students had an academic goal, but the ones that did, 100% of them improved. We get those reports and send them to the principals each quarter so they can see that the site coordinator is doing what they said they'd do. So that is just a little update on us, and I will entertain any questions.
Before you do that, Glendora, would you expand a little bit on the reasoning behind moving the site coordinators from the 2 middle schools to 3 of the elementary schools?
Yes. So when we very first started in Alexander County, Dr. Hefner had written a dropout prevention grant, and she had written it for the middle and the high school. And so that's where the student advocates, that's what we called them, and that's where they were. Well, as communities in schools, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is research and keeping up with the research and what the research says. And we know that research says that students, we need to start in the elementary level with them. By the time they're in the 6th grade, research says that they've already decided whether they're going to graduate from high school or not. And so we felt like we weren't getting them soon enough, early enough, and so we went to Dr. Hefner and said, can we move back and move those site coordinators to the elementary level. And our goal is to serve all 7 elementary schools with a site coordinator. And we have a grant opportunity coming up very soon to do that in Alexander County. So yes, that's why we moved back to the elementary level, because we need to get them earlier rather than later. It's almost too late in the middle school. It's not too late, but it's almost.
Great.
Yes.
Questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank you because you've worked with our county and helped get this program going, and I remember some of the first meetings we had about communities and schools, and I can't believe where it's come to from where we were. So thank you for leading that for us.
You're welcome, and thank you, and hang on because we're growing.
Good.
And I'll be back to tell you about that.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Ready Review, and I recognize the director, Teresa Speaks.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Hefner, members of the board. Hopefully one of my favorite days of the school year, because I get to come and brag. And they did not let me down this year. I did want to start off tonight by telling you I read an article where the state superintendent, when he was interviewing about the Ready Review last Friday, talked about how there were some highs in North Carolina and some lows. And one of the lows was that there are more low-performing schools in this state than there were last year. Those are the schools that make the D's or F's, and there's all kinds of things that go behind those. And I wrote a letter last week, Friday morning when I got in, to our principals, thanking them how they kept all that work away from me, because we don't have any of those in our county. All of our schools were C's or above. Before we start, I usually like to just remind you some of the verbiage and the acronyms that I use. GLP, remember, is grade level proficient, and that's where the most of the data I'll talk about tonight is that's 3s or above. And then CCR is college and career ready, and that's where they have to score a 4 or a 5 to be in that. The performance grades themselves are still 80% achievement or the proficiency and 20% growth. And the growth is one of those things that's hard to understand exactly. It is now all figured by EVOS, which is a system the state hires. But if it's a 0 index, that means that's an expected year's growth. That's where the average kids grew. And then if you go down from that, below negative 1.99, they didn't grow enough, so they do not meet. But from that negative 1.9 all the way up to positive 1.99, that's considered met. And when they convert that to percentage, that's 70% up to 85%. And that is 2 or above, and that's exceed. So they give you a percentage, but they've converted it from that index score. And I'm going to start with our elementary schools. In our elementaries, if you look at the first one, which is Bethlehem, the students at Bethlehem this year was awesome. They went up in all areas of achievement and growth and overall performance. This is the sad part, and I don't know who was going to cry more, me or Mr. Peak, when they missed exceeding by 0.09 on their index score and only 0.3 percentage points. So they did extremely well. They made a more sound B than they did before and went from a C to a B in math. Ellendale Elementary School went from a C to a B in math. And though they still did not meet growth, they did improve their growth index by 1.59. And if you look at just specifically reading, where they only give us a percent, they did meet growth in reading. They stayed the same or improved in all of their performance grades. Overall, they stayed the same. Reading, they stayed the same, but they did improve in math. Hidden Knight Elementary School improved in all areas of achievement. They had 17% more students pass science this year than last. That was an incredible growth for them. And again, which was even probably more heartbreaking, they were only .06 or 0.3 of a point from meeting growth. So, but they did really improve, and so they've set that goal for this year. They improved in all performance areas and went from a D to a C in reading. Stony Point Elementary School went up in all areas of achievement except science. But if you look at their science score, it's still above what we consider core proficiency of 80%, so they didn't really lose a lot there. In a school that small, one student can make that little percentage. They went up in all areas of growth and exceeded growth with a 2.8 index or an 87% growth. And if you look at their math growth, I'll go back. It is 89.5%, which is incredible growth in math at Stony Point. Sorry. Where am I at? Which one?
Sugarloaf.
Oh, I know why. So which way? Sugarloaf. They improved both their achievement and growth in reading. They continued to meet growth, and they did very well in their reading growth. And like Stony Point Elementary School, even though they dropped in science, they still met the core proficiency of 80%. Again, in those small schools, those are two of our smallest, one student can make that little bit of difference. Taylorsville Elementary School continued to improve. They met the core proficiency of 80% in math this year, overall math, out of all their grade levels. Last year they met it at 3rd grade. This year they met that for all math in their school, which is really, really awesome. They improved in everything but science, and they raised their math percent proficient 11 points. Even though they did not exceed growth, they still were above the average year growth at .37, so they were above the 0 index. And that's hard to do considering they exceeded by over 4 points last year. And that's hard for a school to, if you exceed that far and have already grown the kids that far, to grow them again the next year that much, that's hard to do. So that's still excellent. They did exceed in reading. They also maintained their B for this year and even raised their score 1 point. So they raised their performance score 1 point. This brings us to our last elementary school alphabetically, but certainly not our least. They were not last in anything this year. Wittenberg Elementary School actually tied Taylorsville for the second highest overall performance grade. They were both only 1 point behind Bethlehem Elementary School. I did provide in your executive more details of each of these, so I just tried to pull some of the highlights. At Wittenberg, they celebrated their B, and I just wanted to show you all. This was a cake that they had made on Friday morning, and it actually, I found out later, was made by one of our juniors at Alexander Central, Mallory. Thank you, Glenn. I'm looking at her mom and not thinking of her last name. But Mallory, I thought it was really a cool cake, and then she told me her daughter had made it. She goes here. All right, our middle and high schools. East Alexander Middle School improved in growth in all areas this year. The one that I was really impressed with was their math growth was only 9/10 away from exceeding, even though their math proficiency was extremely low. To me, that shows the school did well. They grew those kids. They were very low to begin with, so you have to look at that when you look at your proficiency. Their growth, if you actually computed that, I told you at the beginning the performance grade is 80% achievement, 20% growth. In my opinion, it should be opposite. And so I computed theirs that way just to see. And if we computed their math that way, they'd have a 77B. Their overall performance stayed the same, but their reading and math performance both increased. They met overall growth again and improved their index. Their science is almost at core proficiency. And I've lost my best, West. West, if you look, they did not exceed this year, but again, they came very close. They had a very high exceeding last year too. But in math, their growth was 91.3, so they definitely exceeded in math. Over 90% growth is really, really high. And so, and then they kept everything pretty close to the same. They're still the same grade. And a lot of their things, if you notice, only changed 1 or 2 points. So they really worked hard in their math this year. For the first time ever, I get to report on 2 high schools. I think that's just a good thing of all the opportunities we have for our students here. AEC, which is the bottom one, of course, they only gave the math 1 test this year, so their scores are only based on that, and we can't compare them to anything from last year. But they grew 79% of their students in Math 1, so that was good. And then they also managed to get a B on their first ever report card. Alexander Central High School maintained their 86% graduation rate, which is 0.6 below the state's, and they met growth again this year. Before I go on, I do want to mention that I've given you a bunch of celebrations tonight where we did well. There are places where we need to improve. We do know where those are, and we dig down into those every day. But I shared with the principals when I told them Friday that they could share with their staff their scores. I told them they should take time to celebrate these good things we have done, and then we will dig down, starting the coaches. I'm already preparing stuff for them to start on Friday, really digging deep into our data to find our areas of improvement. These are special highlights. I call them like the shining stars. And this is another way we look at our data to improve. We try to find where things are going well, and then we get together by grade levels or principals or sometimes schools and look and see, well, what did you do that we didn't do by this subject, but then that school sometimes helps that school. For Hiddenite Elementary, you saw that they had improved, but one of the things I found really, really interesting about their improvement was the growth that they did. In last year, only 52% of their 4th graders passed the math test. This year, 62.5% of that same group of students passed it. So they took a group of students and had that many more pass it the next year. They also managed to get 4.7 more of those same set of students to pass their reading test. So that class only passed 49.3% of the tests they took all together in 4th grade, but they passed 63% of the tests they took in 5th grade, same group of students. And so those are some of the ways we look at it, and that's wonderful for that school. Bethlehem did almost the same thing with their 5th grade, but they increased the number who passed reading more than they did the math. So we would look at those two and see which is doing which versus reading and math. Stony Point and Sugarloaf also increased their cohort's proficiency rate, but in 2 different subjects. Stony Point increased the number proficient in math from 4th to 5th by 10.1 percentage points, same group of students. And Sugarloaf increased the number proficient in reading from 4th to 5th by 16.6 percentage points, same group of students. So that's why we look at each other as we go. West increased the number of students math proficient in both of their cohorts, so they did very well in math. The last 2 schools I want to look at are Taylorsville and Wittenberg. Both of these 2 schools did incredibly well, and both have B's for the year. But I think that we are doing them a disjustice if we do not look at their percentage where they are over 80% proficient. Both of these schools in math, in the, which grade was one? Actually, Taylorsville was over 80% in both third and fourth grade, and Wittenberg was over 80% in fourth grade. That's what we call the core proficiency. That's where you want to make sure your kids are getting it just in their classroom. And so it's incredible that they did that. And you might see a little bit of why that's incredible as we go along. Our district results, so this is all those tests added in together. In science, 4 of our 7 elementary schools scored over 80% proficient. Oh, I wanted to tell you that before, I'm sorry. When we were talking about the proficiency in science, 4 of our 7 elementary schools scored over 80% proficient. So that is a huge amount. Our science is doing really well. And when you see our overall science for 5th and 8th grade, we're doing very well in there. As a district, we once again increased our overall proficient rate. I think it's I can't see without my glasses, it's 0.1. So we did increase, and we have steadily stayed very high up for our overall proficient. Now remember, our district, when we were looking at our schools, they don't just take our schools and average those, and some people think that's kind of why it does it, but you'll see some things a little bit different. The reason our overall proficiency here was increased, but yet our EOCs went down, but our EOGs went up, is because they take every test every kid in the school system takes and divide that, the number passed, by the total number of tests. So like one of our 8th graders could count 4 times if they took reading, math 1, and their science score. So they don't exactly average out this way that you would think in your head. With our 4s and 5s, our EOGs did not increase as much as we did before, but they did increase slightly as 0.7. And so we did go down a little at 4s and 5s, but it is 0.2 if you can't see it on there. We went down 0.2 of a point is all that we went down. And now this one's one that a lot of you all like. And if you notice this one, it is underlined. And what I did last year, some of you asked for some of this stuff. When I did a separate spreadsheet and pulled out all of that down into just our surrounding counties or the 115 counties, I made those spreadsheets where you can click and it'll redo them, and I linked them for you all, and you all have access. So Deborah's going to load this after tonight, and then you all will be able to go in and play with those. If you don't like to, you don't have to, but some of you I know like to do that. So I did. With surrounding counties, I looked at everything. I couldn't fit it all on one slide, so here we have just the major areas. For performance overall, we ranked 3rd under Caldwell and Iredell Statesville. But if you look at that, we're only 0.8 away from Caldwell, which was the highest. So that was the spread between us and Caldwell. So that's overall performance out of all of us in the surrounding districts. We again rank above all schools with our ACT scores in our surrounding area. And I kind of like the ACT measure because to me that kind of represents every teacher from kindergarten up had some hand in helping that kid make their ACT score. The students, our EOCs are not as good this year, which you will see, so we're not as high ranked in those. The next one's the EOGs and the math EOGs. I put in yellow. We are 2nd in all the surrounding districts. And then after those, I know our reading ones are there. And then after that, usually I don't include those next few, but I included those 4 right after that. The 3rd grade math, 4th grade math, 3rd grade reading, and 4th grade reading. Just to show y'all, our teachers this year in 3rd and 4th grade, we were number 1 on those both subject areas in 3rd and 4th for all of our surrounding districts. And I just think that was phenomenal. And then the last 3 are our science, and we were 2nd or 1st overall and in individual in science out of our surrounding districts. And all the rest of those by every grade level and everything is in that sheet that you can get into if you want to look at those. Then our district to the state. Overall, we're above the state average. But as you could guess from some of the previous slides, we are under in all of our EOCs. The Math 1 score is the only one that was affected by AEC. Since this is district, it's all of our schools, and EOCs would be, with Math 1 would be affected by AEC, and then our 8th grade Math 1 scores. So those are all in with the Math 1. The other ones are just ACHS, because English 2 is sophomores, and so none of those are there yet, and that they are this year, so English 2 next year will affect that. And then biology are juniors, so it'll be 3 years before the biology scores include both of our high schools. On the next one, we are well above the state average in the elementary grades, but only above in 8th grade at the middle schools. But if you look at the ones in each of our elementary, all 3 grades, we are quite a bit above the state average. And if you, because our elementary schools did so well, we are above the state average in reading, math, and science, with our science score almost at core proficiency for the entire district. So we are almost at 80% for our district in science. The next things that I'm going to do is tell you where we rank overall out of all 115 districts. Before I do, I did want to mention, and I asked Ms. Mahaffey for a little help this afternoon because I thought it was interesting to look at. I thought I would tell you where we ranked in per pupil funding out of those same 115 districts. This year, and for the same year that I'm giving you this data for that same year in 16-17, per pupil funding, we ranked 86 in the state for overall funding. For local funding, we ranked 96. Now, where do we rank? Overall, GLP 44. Overall, this is out of all 115, we rank 38th out of CCR, of kids making 4s and 5s. That is in the top third of the state. 3rd grade reading, 23rd. The rest I just did if we're 25 or above. 3rd grade reading, CCR, 4s and 5s, 22nd. The ACT was only one above the 25, and again, because I think that kind of represents everything, I did keep it in here, and we were 26th in the state in our ACT scores. So, did we have any in the top 20? Yes, we did. 3rd grade math, 21st. 3rd grade math CCR, 18th out of all 115. Can we get any better? Wait for it. 4th grade math, GLP 8th, and 4th grade math, 4s and 5s, 8th in the state of North Carolina. So, like I said, and this is also the thing to this was linked. If you want to look at the 115 states, you can do that. Again, I just love it. If you could be in my office when I start going through this stuff, I start emailing going, I haven't went through everything yet, but listen to what I found, listen to what I found. And I was emailing Dr. Hector and Dr. Curry, who were at meetings that day. I get so excited when the principals come in and I can tell them how well they did. It's so wonderful to be able to brag and to say how good they do here in Alexander County. And it's our teachers, it's the way we do things. If you look at those math scores, those kids, the 4th and 3rd grade, those are the kids that started on these new math, as they call it, the Common Core, when they were kinders. And you see that now 4th graders are doing well, the 3rd as they come up, and that trend as those kids continue to go up should continue with our math scores rising. Our teachers are getting better and better at it. Our coaches are wonderful at helping them do things, do their learning focus maps and continue it. So there's even more excitement coming, I'm sure, this year and in years to come. Are there any questions?
Just a comment, our students, our staff, and also the parents of those students, because a lot of that homework, much beloved homework, but those are phenomenal numbers, and this entire system should be extremely elated. But we should also be keenly aware that if you're 96th in local funding and then you're the 80th percentile on per pupil funding, there is room for improvement. And, you know, they're doing a lot with a little, and that's from the administrators, to the custodians, to the maintenance folks, to the bus drivers. But I commend our staff and children for doing a lot with a little.
And I think what's great about this county, Mr. Odom, is they do it with love. And I think that's part of it, that's what keeps our county, they just keep going. I mean, they throw more at them and they just keep, but that doesn't mean they can't throw more to us. They could give us a little more so that they could. Sometimes I wonder what they could do if they had, I forget what it was, Ms. Mahaffey, that one county, 1,000 per pupil that they had, and she and I discussed, what could we do with that per pupil? Where could we get those kids? If we can get them where
Was
we
that
got
the
them now with
state
this.
and local funding added together equaled 17,000?
Yeah, that was the total.
We definitely have a lot to be proud of
Yes.
as a community and for education.
Any other questions?
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
And you will
Teresa.
have these links.
Yes, she's gonna upload the PowerPoint to your. the whole
Agenda, the agenda.
And
Okay.
then you'll be able to link on them.
Okay.
I just didn't want you to see the page beforehand.
Thank you. Would recognize Jill Peak to give us an update on Bethlehem Elementary School.
Madam Chair, board members, and Dr. Heflin, thank you first of all for having me here tonight. And just want to say on behalf of my staff, they do work hard and we do appreciate all the work that you do. I know lots of times that even myself don't realize the amount of hours that you put in to that seat right there. And we thank you very much for all you do. And you are a part of why we're so successful as well. So thank you. We're excited and looking forward to a new year with our students and our families, and we're ready to soar into a new year as Bethlehem Eagles. Part of that soaring is a lot of new family members this year. At the end of last year, we said, no, we won't have too many new ones, but it just turned out that we do. These are just a few of them. New to our family, we have Larissa Rocks, who is teaching in kindergarten, Jessica Reed in kindergarten, Erica Crawford, who I am very proud to say, I could say yesterday that we are fully staffed because Ms. Crawford was one of our staff members who we were waiting on. She was being held to a 30-day contract in Wilkes County, and yesterday was our first day with her, so a lot of celebrating there. And then today we turn right around and have a teacher assistant resignation. So no, as of right now, we're not fully staffed, but we will be soon. Heidi Minton transferred to us the EC department from East Alexandria. Mr. James Spennell and Natalie Stout are serving in the OT position and assistant position that we had. Ms. Dee Dee Foster's in the cafeteria. Seth Mull was an asset we gained from East as well. And Ricky Rogers, our social worker, as well as Casey Loman, teacher assistant. So we don't have them all pictured here because it's very difficult other than the first day to get them all in the picture at the same time. So as I go throughout the presentation today, you'll see a few of them as well. So when I thought about what we would present on the first board meeting of the school year, I asked a question of my staff members, and I asked them, what are you looking forward to sharing with your students this year? And it was very difficult for many of them to narrow it down to just a few things, but I told them I only had a limited amount of time, so they were narrowed it down to the ones that they were most excited about, and we're going to talk about a few of those tonight. First of all, in kindergarten, I don't know how many of you have ever had any experience with a classroom or a group of 20 kindergarten students, 5-year-olds, but it's a little short of amazing, the things that happen in kindergarten, just in the first 2 weeks of school. And the kindergarten team, as well as first and second grade team, one of the things that they were most excited about was being able to provide some opportunities for our students in phonics instruction through the Orton Gillingham method of teaching phonics. It's that we had training last year for, actually, if we would have had all of our staff to remain and not, go out and have babies by all means, we would have had all of them trained in K2 this year. But we're celebrating lots of ways there. So you'll hear that mentioned several times throughout the presentation today. As far as kindergarten goes, even the smallest thing of even, instead of getting out of a car, being escorted into a preschool or a daycare, they're coming off of buses and out of cars and walking independently on their own to class. So when I say think it's short of amazing, the transformation that happens there in 2 weeks worth, that's a part of it. Not to mention you get to feed them breakfast. No longer is it family style. You know, they do the balancing act with the grab and go and do very well. And of course, all of those things add up to successful students, not just in kindergarten, but throughout their school career, building independence and that kind of thing. Here, you see the kindergartner on the left there. You would have never known they had first day jitters, but they read a story called First Day Jitters, and I'm not going to ruin the ending for you, but it was not the students who had the jitters. So after the story, they were able to enjoy some jitter juice, and then there's some self-portraits there on the right of their first day of school, which I thought were quite well done. First grade is excited. I really had to pound on these ladies. They just wanted to share too much. But the 3 things that they narrowed it down to, you've probably heard a lot lately about growth mindset. And basically, in a nutshell, instead of a student saying, I can't do that, a student says, I can't do that yet. Having a positive outlook that, no, I might not be able to do this right now, but I'm going to work towards goals, and I'm going to be able to do it pretty soon. So that's what that little girl on the left is doing. They talked to them about stretching their brains and being able to do things that they maybe couldn't. And she's stretching some gack or putty or something that they made that day. So also they're excited about a new app called Seesaw. It is it provides a multitude of resources for our teachers, our students, and the parents. It's a communication resource, for one. At the top of the page, you see students there with their iPads. And it doesn't look like a typical math problem, but that's what you see there in those squares, orange squares. Each student had a math problem with orange squares. They were working on number bonds. And they took a picture through the Seesaw app of their math problem. And then the picture below that, where you see the 4 and the 5 with the orange squares, were able to work on number bonds and actually manipulate and draw on their iPads to show the number in. But the neatest thing is, then they send it to their parents, seconds after they've completed it. Now, you talk about somebody loving that. The parents have really loved it. They're able to record it in their journal and then share it with their parents, and the parents can comment on it or like it right there. So, I know all of you have children, and probably the sweetest thing is their voices, especially when they're at this age, whether they're, saying a prayer or reading a story. This afternoon, Ms. Horn shared a recording of a first grader reading a story. Just that sweet, sweet sound. But that first grader was able to send it to their mom as soon as they were finished. And we would have thought that we had handed that mother, yes, a pot of gold. So it's great. They're really excited about that. They're going to try to use that in kindergarten, first and second grade, similar to the Dojo communication tool that they use in the upper grades. And then again, you see Orton Gillingham there. The students on the right with the plates that are full of sand, they were representing the letters there that make the k sound. And of course, that's C and K. So they are excited most about those things, especially the parent tool where they can like and comment in real time, so to speak. Second grade, they also are looking forward to the OG this year. This is in kindergarten, first and second grade. This is the first time they've been able to start a school year with the Orton Gillingham method, because they all received training at various points last year, so they were able to actually start from the very beginning this year. We have 3 in second grade that are trained and 1 to go, so These students are looking forward, also the teachers looking forward to sharing STEM projects and digital learning projects with their students, all while trying to remember that to focus on building relationships and fostering a love for learning. Here they made a friendship sushi. No, they didn't really, it wasn't really sushi. It was marshmallow treats and marshmallow cream and I think a gummy roll there that symbolizes the, I don't know if that's bacon, I don't eat sushi, so I don't know. But they definitely were having a good time, just getting to know each other in second grade on the first day of school. Then third grade, these students are participating in what looks a lot like a STEM activity, but it's actually a coding activity, all with the focus of building personal and group perseverance. Again, that growth mindset, developing a positive growth mindset. Their task there was to build a tower out of, believe it or not, gumdrops and toothpicks, I think, that would support a book for at least 10 seconds. And many of them said, oh, my goodness, it was a little harder than they thought, to support it for 10 seconds. But it's so neat to be able to see them, although they were doing it individually, to see them talking with each other. Well, what if we do this and try this, So it was great, an activity and perseverance, and instead of saying, I can't do this, continuing to try and having a growth mindset. If I can do this, I will be able to do this. So that helps for them to learn how to set appropriate goals, realistic goals, and making a plan to accomplish those goals. All of our kindergarten through 5th grade students will be working with data folders again this year, and in an effort to actually be able to see what their goal is and to talk about their goals and their progress with the teacher and their parents and other students as well. 4th grade, the biggie in 4th grade seems to be the Raleigh trip every year. And it is a great trip. Teachers have said they were excited to share the Raleigh trip because, after a lengthy study of North Carolina, including developing an understanding of the state's government, it's always really neat to see them pull it all together and say, this really does happen, for the understanding that they gain. And there I put on the right, that's a picture of Miss Crawford. That's our 4th grade celebration this week. So we're anxious to spend some time with her and off to a great start. They're also excited about the one-to-one push out. I've seen them use their Chromebooks in spelling, math, ELA, incorporating science and social studies with those, and that really too is kind of short of amazing. Of course we had piloted classes last year, so the toughest thing for 3rd and 4th graders is getting them to realize that when you try to log on, it has to be exact. It can't be a little off. And once they got over that hump, which it took them, 3 or 4 days, they realized that yes, I can do this, and they are running with it. So they're loving that. So that's a great opportunity for our students. The next thing is 5th grade, and they also mentioned the one-to-one transition as well. Their quote here says, "We believe that the use of technology will only enhance our students' learning and will better prepare them for future college and/or career experiences." They are also really pumped about science. We've got 2 teachers, we have 3 teachers there this year. We have 2 that really, really have a love of teaching science. And all of them started out the year the first week with a science exploration activity. They were presented with a white substance, an unknown white substance, and they did things to the substance to try to figure out what it was. That was provided by the teacher, and then they were asked also, the ones that wanted to bring a substance from home.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I know that might be a little scary, but it all turned out okay, thankfully. But the kids loved it. You should have seen them. This one looks a little soapy. This one's, caking up. But just anytime they can get their hands on it, it's great. And then, of course, when you can add the writing and the reading and speaking and listening to it, that just brings it all together and makes it fun. So, them to print the opportunity to work through the scientific method, that was a great opportunity for them early on. And then, of course, I don't know how we'd do it without these ladies, this department. They do get our kids to understand that they can move mountains. And their excitement statement this year is just simply, we're excited and looking forward to seeing our kids learn new skills. Sometimes you might just, it's great to see the light bulb, and sometimes the light bulb might come in just little glimmers. But when you can see that huge glow, it's like that, there's nothing like that. So these ladies are pretty awesome, and they're such a positive group. I take my inspiration from them sometimes. Heidi Minton actually is new to our school, but of course we knew her through the EC department initially. And, they're a great team down there. And then the enhancement classes, they all look a little different. We've got a lot of celebrating there this year and excitement there. Of course, we've got the new playground in the background, thanks to our PTO and our parents for years now collecting that. So Mr. Mays, of course, he jumped on board. He said, we've got to have some rules, we've got to have some, some things to keep them safe. So that's how he got to spend his first week of school, is taking the kids that had not been out, particularly to the playground to visit, and going over the rules out at the Eagle's Nest. Then in 4th and 5th grade, the guidance classes, Ms. Yarborough mentioned bringing kindness to Alexander County, showing our kids that kindness does matter. It does matter, and it matters to folks of all ages. The guidance classes in 4th and 5th grade, the first couple of weeks of school, worked through a program, Cards for Hospitalized Kids. They didn't know a name, kids, who the cards would go to. But the excitement, you see some of the samples of the cards that they created, just to have that service mindset and doing something for someone else, they really enjoyed that. And then the BAS course in the music department, looking forward to just continuing the variety of music tools that we have. They're using boom whackers up at the top there. It's kind of like those things that you together at the ball game, to be together, I don't know what they call those. But these actually are...
I don't know, the folks around us the past few weeks have had cowbells.
Oh, well, no, he may have some cowbells in there, but this day they were using boom whackers. They're of different lengths, and the kids are really amazed to be able to learn through those kinds of things. They also have guitars and xylophones and drums, so I look forward. The music room actually backs up to my office, kind of, and sometimes I tease Mr. Moody because I tell him, of course I can hear the deep sound. I tell him I think the Darlings are next door playing because he gets a kick out of that. So we're excited to expand upon our chorus as well. They'll be performing twice this year, once at Christmas and once at the end of the year. And finally, the administration and curriculum, we had to kind of narrow our things down too, but some of the things that we're excited about, we are now have a greater confidence than ever that we're ready to move to the MTSS process and making decisions, for students who might have some learning disabilities and that kind of thing. Of course, we're excited about the Orton Gillingham training and the implementation. Another thing I put down there that's just lots of fun every year, and I believe it's fun because it's not based on how well you'll do on those end of grade assessments. It's based on the work you've done all year long so far, the hard work and the effort that you put forth, and that's our I Can Carnival. We do have it close to the end of grade, so students hopefully will remember that mindset. I've worked hard and I can, and we're going to celebrate what we've done so far, so I always look forward to that. And then our student support team is going to participate in a book study this year, called based on that book, The Out of Sync Child. We have found that through our student support team that more and more children are being diagnosed with sensory processing disorders, and they all look different. So we felt we had a need to try to learn more about that, how we could better meet the needs of those children, not necessarily a specific learning disability, but a need that they have. Just some interesting tidbits there. 1 out of every 6 children who has needs, not necessarily LD needs, some sort of something related to sensory processing disorder. So it's all about helping those students and building relationships with their families and getting their families into a point to where they feel comfortable coming in and talking with us and sharing their information, and we just sit down and brainstorm together. So we think that's going to be a great thing. And Ms. Spinks has already mentioned it, but we're just really excited that we met growth. We're both disappointed and excited that we, the way I told my kids, we aren't 9 pennies out of 100 that close. So we're excited about that, and we'll keep driving the beach cycle in the future.
There you go.
Do you guys have questions for me?
It was a great presentation. Thank you.
I have a comment. I'm looking forward to seeing the new phonics program when we visit. Will we
Please
get
come
to,
do,
when
yes.
will we get to see that when we come visit?
Absolutely. It's a multi-sensory approach. You know, you saw the sand trays. They also have, I don't know if any of you do cross-stitch or needlepoint, I don't know, Orlando, but they use those screens to raise the tactile element when they trace sight words and that kind of thing. It's just, there's nothing fancy about it. It's just grounded on the basic phonics principles. There's no new edition that you have to buy every year or every 2 years. So they're very excited about it. And, you know, a lot of the training has been paid for through Title I funds, as well as some of our 960 money. So
That'll be exciting.
I'll be in touch to get some dates
okay.
to,
Yes,
to see, you know, when we can get a visit scheduled. Good, thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
The next report is, I'll recognize Teresa Smeeks for the AP test data comparison.
Those pictures were much more fun than anything I can remember. This is, Dr. Hefner asked me to just give you also a little bit about our advanced placement. We've really not ever presented about it or let you know anything before. And so we kind of wanted to let you know where we are in Alexander County. I thought I'd better start to let you know what we actually offer. We have these classes: English 3 and 4, APs, AP Calc AB, that's the first half of Calc, statistics, environmental science, biology, chemistry, which was new this past year, so 16-17 was the first year, AP US History, which this year, coming year, the one we're in, is only offered online, because instead we're offering AP Government while we train a new teacher, because you all took one as an assistant principal at a different school. And so I love the fact that the high school decided to offer a different one, but for if there were any seniors that missed it, it is being offered online. And these are the ones that we offer through NCVPS. These are classes that we currently have students in. There are other AP courses, and if the kids, as long as we don't offer them in seat, if they're offered there, they are allowed to take them. So I kind of wanted to let you know how that compared to what the other local high schools offer. And we did some data this year and digging and looking on internet, some phone calls, and found out of our local surrounding counties, we offered 9. That was 9 in-house. We didn't count our virtual schools. We only counted the ones offered at our school. Newton Conover offers 8. And then 6 to 9 in, they have a kind of a school within a school. It is a different school. It's like a magnet school, but it's located on their same campus. So I think they kind of share some of those, is how they get those numbers. Hickory City offered 8 at Hickory High. Catawba at their 5 high schools, Bandy's and Bunker Hill offered 10, just 1 more than us. Fred T. Ford offered 2 more. Maiden offered 7, and St. Stephen's has 13. And then in Wilkes County, North Wilkes and West Wilkes, we could not find where they had any APs, but I think they're more agriculturally and they're more CTE grounded schools. So Wilkes Central did offer the same number that we do. And then Iredell Statesville, offer from 10 to 12 at their high schools. And then in Caldwell County, they each offer 13 different ones. And then how we done, this is 16 and 17 compared. We went, and you kind of have to look at this different. And when you look at this data, it takes a while to figure out what they're talking about. The first thing they talk about are test takers themselves. So that's the number of students that actually take the test. And so in 16, we had 139. Last summer, or early spring, we had 153 take the test. 9.4 of our students in 16 took a test, and last year 11.2% of our students took a test. So we're increasing the number of kids that actually take the test. In 16, 77 of those kids scored a 3 or higher, and this past year 84 of those kids scored a 3 or higher. So 7 more kids passed an AP exam than had done it the year before. And I know 7 doesn't seem like a lot, but in our little county, that's a whole lot more kids that now have an AP score on their college entrance exam and have that college credit if they did well enough behind them. Then the percent of those kids who passed, 55.4% passed in 16, but only 54.9 passed in 17, but more kids gave it a shot. So I'm not, as I've said, that's not a huge difference. Then they switch and they talk about how many tests. So as one student, I could take, 3 AP tests in the same year. So this time they're talking about the actual test. 238 were taken in 16 and 264 in 17. 113 of those exams made passed, and in the next year 116. So 3 more tests were passed. Whether they were passed by those same 7 kids or not, who knows? But we still had more exams passed in the county. Percent-wise, 47.5% of the exams were passed in 16 and only 43.9 in 17. But again, like over 30 more tests were taken. So you still we ended up passing more tests than we passed the year before. And you can see down below where we went up or down. And then this one, the last one I just wanted you to do, I know, again, we're just comparing to the other counties. And when you look in here, we didn't do too badly. And we added in a few counties that weren't the ones that just touched us, but they were kind of the size we were. And so you have some of the things to look in there of, how did we compare? Is another county or different? Hickory City, for instance, we had 9.4%. They only had 10.6. But we had 55.4 kids take it, and they had 57. So it wasn't many more kids, but we had 47.5% of our exams that we passed, and they only passed 51.1. So there's not a lot of difference in the size of those 2 schools. And then if you go down to Wilkes County, 47.9% of theirs passed in the former year. In 16. But if you look at 17, 40.8 in Wilkes, and we passed 43.9%. 10.7% of our students took the exams, and only 8.4% of Wilkes County did this year. So we are offering more opportunities to our kids. In Caldwell County, 9.7% of their kids were allowed to take the test. 38.9% of their exams were passed. We had 43.9. So I think that not only are we having more opportunities for our kids, but we're allowing them to take them. Some of the school systems, you can't take the test unless you do a certain way in the class. We let every child that takes the course take the test. So they all get that opportunity to try and to see what it's like. And many of them pass it and use it for college. But I do have, and again, that one is linked. And Deborah said that sometimes when she uploads to your, that you can't use the links. So I will email them to Deborah and let her email them out to you so that you'll have those links. Because she said sometimes that doesn't work when she uploads it to you. Board
I
Docs.
don't see it as an attachment on our agenda.
Well, she was gonna add it after the
Okay,
two
okay,
today.
all right.
But instead of adding them, well, she can add them, but I'm gonna also let her email them to you so that those links work for you.
Thank you,
Are
because
there-
I've had trouble
Yeah,
accessing
that's,
some of the
she said
links.
last, sometimes when she does them, I think maybe, sometimes we have to PDF stuff and then the links don't work. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank
Teresa.
you.
Thank you.
I'll recognize Melissa Dunn, Behavioral Specialist for Alexander County Schools, for our discipline data summary. How are you?
I'm fine, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Hefner. See if I'm a little hoarse right now. A little background information about why we collect this data and why we have this compiled data. I know you've heard a little bit about the process of our MTSS and how the State Department, we're wanting to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all students. And we say meeting the needs of all students. I've got a little clicker here. Through the MTSS process, it's just a framework, and it includes a tiered process with kids that addresses academic needs, behavioral, and attendance. The state's kind of component that addresses the behavioral needs is called PBIS, or Positive Behavioral Intervention and Supports. And it's really exciting because it's a kind of a positive framework for the school system with how to address behavioral needs in the building. Really like it. Each school in Alexander County is in the 3 to 5 year process, like the MTSS, of implementing PBIS. At the end of each school year, the PBIS team and administration is responsible for putting together a discipline data summary. And so in the next few slides, you're going to see me refer to ODRs, Office Discipline Referrals is what that means. So the data is strictly on office discipline referrals. So the students that are sent to the office, and we know that the MTSS process in PBIS is a data-driven process. So it's wonderful because that data allows the team to look at where are the patterns of behaviors and what's going on that we're getting these office discipline referrals. So what I did is took all of the individual schools' discipline data summary and compiled it into one for the whole county. So we could kind of see generally across the county as a whole what we're looking at. If you'll look at the end of June of last year, the total number of students enrolled in Alexander County was 4,873 at the time that we submitted the report to the state. Of those 4,873, there was 1,724 office discipline referrals. These were office discipline referrals that were recorded in PowerSchool, so they were actually put into the computer system. You can see a breakdown by month of how many office discipline referrals, and I have this and then I have a graph next to it. So you can see that October, usually that's kind of when the newness wears off. They're starting to push limits a little bit. They've made it through September. And then as you move forward into February, we know consistency with behavior. We're off of our routines a little bit. We've been through the holidays, and we've had some, delays. We're off of our routine, and so that affects in February. And then it spikes again in May, which is at the end of the year. And I think that's to kind of be predicted. And so this is the same, a bar graph where you can just kind of see the office discipline referrals by month. The next is a breakdown by race and ethnicity. So you can kind of see the total number of enrolled, the American Indian, Asian, Black, African American, Hispanic, 2 or more, Native, Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and white. And then you can see that gives you your total enrollment out of the ODRs. What is the percentage of office discipline referrals by ethnicity? Just to make sure that we're got a little balance there. Same thing here, percentage of ODRs and the percentage of actual enrollment. So the one on the far right is white, and then it goes down to the next is the Black, African American, and then Hispanic. Pushed together there. Referrals by grade level, this is pretty interesting. You know, keep in mind that we've got, elementary's got 6 grades, middle's 3, and high has 4. But the total number, I don't have my glasses on, I can't see from there. So for high school, 17.9% of those referrals came from high school. 44.3 came from elementary, and then 38.8 from middle school. And so I broke down on the bottom there, you can actually see there were 764 office system referrals in elementary, middle school 651, and then high school was 309.
Melissa, can I ask a question
Yes.
here? Is that a combination of bus referrals along with classroom referrals? So
One of-
those are not broken out, I'm assuming?
Right, so one of the last referrals is we look at location, type of incident, and so you'll see the bus referrals are in there.
Okay.
Which is
Okay.
pretty interesting, because that's some pretty telling data. One of the things that the individual schools look at is location of incident, which is really important. That way we can do some reteaching if they're having more office referrals, say from the bus or the playground, and like Ms. Peak said, you know, they got their new playground, so they went out and they taught the kids the rules, the expectations out on the playground. So you can look at your data to kind of help drive that. And how you're going to educate. This is the same thing, bar graph. You can see that the highest percentage of referrals are coming in from middle school, and that's, you know, middle school's kind of a tough time. There's a lot going in middle school. And I kind of like, too, you can see that, you know, for the high school, you've got your 9th grade is the highest with referrals, but by the time they get down to 12th grade, it kind of diminishes a little bit, and they're growing up a little more maturity. This is what you were referring to, Dr. Hefner. So what I did is that when they go into Power School, they have to pick the type of incident that the office discipline referral was for. And so I compiled the top incidents countywide. So if you look, there was 370 office system referrals, or 33% for bus misbehavior.
And I have to ask this, is
Yes.
that why that elementary number is a little elevated?
Yes, because I have a feeling there's more office, and if we break down the office discipline referrals, how many of those bus referrals are by
Yes.
elementary?
Yes, I'd love to know that because, yeah.
We might be able to pull that out and get a little help and see. I think some of the elementary schools have come up with an initiative and a positive reinforcement system to acknowledge kids that are behaving appropriately on the bus. But I also think statewide, we have more kids riding our buses now than we have in the past, per bus, which I think increases a little bit of the.
Well, when I
referrals.
talk to principals, often they will reference misbehavior on buses.
Yes,
That, you know, it's difficult.
it's a challenge,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay.
Disruptive behavior, you know, the principals kind of know what falls under those categories and where to place it. 270 officer referrals at 19.5%. Fighting, which is interesting, so you know that's actual physical aggression towards others, 6.3 or 70 office system referrals. Aggressive behavior, which would be different if threatening types of behavior, verbal threats, 274 office discipline referrals. Inappropriate language, 181 office discipline referrals at 16.2%. So that's our top incident by referral by county as a whole. And then I'm not going to go over this, but this will just kind of let you know the categories that they're looking at, because I've already pulled out the highest one to do the previous pie graph. But there's a whole list of incident types that are included within the bar graph. And that is the end. So if there's any clarification or any additional questions that I can offer for anyone?
I think it's really interesting information.
Yeah. You know, I think there's a lot of things that are handled that don't necessarily wouldn't be considered an office discipline referral. But this is stuff that's significant enough that it's documented, and so I think it's good data individually for the schools to see how to make choices and decisions and how to problem solve within their building. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
great, thank you very much. It's nice to know that those referrals drop by the time they're ready to graduate. Now I'll recognize Dr. Hefner for our superintendent's report.
This report is attached in your agenda. I would just ask everyone to remember the family of Dr. Josephine Foster. Dr. Foster passed away this week. She served in many capacities in the Alexander County Schools and was the 1998 recipient of the prestigious Award of Honor. She also served on the Board of Education after her retirement, and I must say that my first encounter with Dr. Foster was as a high school student at ACHS. Actually, one of the classiest women that I possibly have ever known, had a real heart for children, had a heart for Alexander County, and I told myself even in high school when I grew up I wanted to be like Dr. Foster. So certainly she has always been special in my heart. We found out today that the family will receive friends at Stony Point United Methodist Church on Friday. That's September 15th from 1 until 2 p.m. The funeral will follow at 2, and the burial will be in the church cemetery. I just put before you tonight, Board, that memorials can be made either to the Stony Point United Methodist Church or to Samaritan's Purse Disaster Relief Fund in Boone. And I would just ask you, as I have you as a group, do you have a preference which memorial we make as a school board? Because we, of course, will, because she's a former administrator.
No preference.
Okay. Anybody have a preference? Okay, good. We'll pick and take care of that. Secondly, the North Carolina School Boards Association district meetings are underway, and our District 7 meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, September 27th at Avery High School in Newland. The meeting will be from 4 until 8 with dinner included. If you are interested in attending, I need for you to let Deborah know as soon as possible, preferably tomorrow if possible. Because we do need to get registered and make plans as far as I need to change a parent focus group meeting in my schedule. And I can reschedule that if some of you want to attend the meeting. Also, the North Carolina School Boards Association Annual Conference will be held in Greensboro November 13th, 14th, and 15th. If you are interested in attending that conference, please let Deborah know. It says at your earliest convenience for registration, but it's already filling up. I would really like to know by Friday if that's possible. So if you'll look at your November calendar and let Deborah know if you want to attend. We do have school visits scheduled for Thursday, September 21st. We're going to visit the Student Success Center and Alexander Early College. We're going to meet at the Student Success Center at 11:30 and then transition to the Early College, and lunch will be delivered that day to the site at the Early College about 12:50. So I hope that you'll attend. I think that you will be pleased with what you see. We're in the third and final year of our strategic plan, and we are beginning to conduct district-level comprehensive needs assessments, which will be used to inform that new strategic plan. And as part of this process, we plan to involve parents in a way that's never been tried before in the county. Dr. Curry and I have 12 meetings scheduled in our fall calendars, and we're going to be conducting parent advisory focus group meetings for each of the schools. We plan to ask parents what they want for our school system and seek involvement in making sure that our public schools continue to be the very best educational option for children in Alexander County. We're committed to the expansion of opportunities and know that parents have much information to offer in sharing the needs of their children and their desires for quality learning experiences. I look forward to sharing our findings with you after we finish up with the parent advisory groups, and that will probably be early on in the second semester, sometime in January maybe, because our last meetings will be held in the middle of November. As you know, we have a joint meeting scheduled with the county commissioners and the CVCC staff. That meeting is scheduled for October 9th, beginning at 6 in our boardroom. I really look forward to discussing future plans for the early college. We do have our celebration of community partners scheduled. It's scheduled for Monday, October 16th, beginning at 6 at the auditorium. Please mark your calendar with this special annual event. And then I said lastly, but then I added two things after I added that paragraph. Our elementary schools will be involved in the annual Fall Canned Food Drive during the week of October 2nd through the 6th. Last year, we collected almost 38,000 cans of food, and we hope to surpass that total this year. With 5 food pantries in the county, approximately 50,000 pounds of food is provided to families each month in Alexander County, and I am really proud that our schools participate in this giving event. For clarification, I wanted to just remind you of a couple of things. I have provided you our enrollment numbers for the first 10 days of school. Our allotted ADM for 2017-18 is 4,932. To clarify for you, that is the number we have been funded at for this year, not the current number that you saw yesterday for day 10. The current number is 4,893. The allotted ADM for last school year, that was 16-17, was 4,992. It was exactly 60 fewer students. Those numbers, those allotment numbers are so close. They sound alike, they look alike. I wanted to make sure that you understand the difference and that you're using correct numbers. And as of day 10, we had 39 fewer students than we have been allotted with our ADM. So that means that we are looking like we are going to be safe as far as our funding at this point, and we will not have to revert money back to the state. Now, the state will look at day 20. I have provided you numbers through day 10. So understand that it's not set in stone here on day 10, but I'm thinking that we're safe this year and won't have to revert money back. And then the very last thing that I failed to include, wanted to remind everyone that we have our first early dismissal day for elementary schools on Thursday. So that one actually sneaked up on me, and I didn't realize it until yesterday that was scheduled for this week, but that is the first of those 10 days that have been added to the calendar just for elementary schools. Any questions?
I would just like to commend the school administration for the 2-hour delay this morning. That wasn't mentioned, but that was a very smart call.
Yes.
It was.
And I appreciate, as a parent, I appreciate that. And as a board member. So.
Well, we skirted one, and count your blessings.
Yes.
Count your blessings. All right.
Just to let you know, to board members, if you have any specific questions that you would like to have answered or to discuss with the meeting we're having on the 9th with the commissioners have asked for those to be presented to them early so that they can think about it or get any information they need. So if you have any questions specifically for me to forward to them, if you could please get those questions to me by the end of September. That will give them 9 or 10 days before our meeting. Okay?
I guess we'll reciprocate with that also.
Well, they are presenting us with a list.
Okay.
So, I thought we should return that favor so we can make a productive meeting out of it. Did you have something?
No. I was just going to say the best way to submit those to you will be through email.
Yes, please. I think so, and then I'll try and compile them, or you and I can get together, or you and Vice Chairman Bowman and I can get together, and we can try and compile them if there's a list of them. All right, so we're going to move on to new business, and I would, for the Sugarloaf, we didn't have any policy revisions this month. Yay. Okay. We're going to move on to new business, the Sugarloaf Fire Department lease, and I would Yeah, I know. I would recognize Board Member Schrum.
Yes, as you know, our lease is expiring with Sugarloaf Fire Department, and the building is not complete. They're in the process of a change order that's kind of tied them up at this point. The shell of the building is complete, but they can't proceed with the interior stud work till the change order's been approved. And so anyhow, we're going to have to renew again, and Facilities Committee's recommendation is that we renew for an additional 6 months at the current $400 per month rate.
All right, you've heard the recommendation. So that comes in the form of a motion from the.
Yes, they'll have to accept it after that, but, yeah. But yes, we'll make that presentation to them and they can accept or not.
Or not. All right, so I need a second on that?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Most single wides in Alexander County rent for in excess of $400 a month. So just, you know, it's a good deal, really good deal.
Yeah, they're getting a good deal.
It's a very good deal.
So, any other discussion? I would just like to note for the record that we reconvened the Facilities Committee 2 months prior to the expiration of that lease, whatever, I guess would go from August to February, is that right?
Okay.
Technically, it would be September 1st, so.
Yes, September 1 to February 28.
Yeah. So if you could put that on the agenda for December,
Yes.
because I think there might be some discussion.
Oh, there will be
At that
discussion.
point
At
in
that
time.
point, there shall be more discussion, I'm sure.
So have, to discuss this lease extension at the December board meeting, correct?
The next lease extension,
Okay.
not.
Yeah, what's gonna transpire with that
After
building
this.
and this lease after February 28th?
Okay.
And this is our third lease extension, is that correct?
Well, I think it's the second
It's
extension.
the second extension. The first lease was for a year.
Okay.
And then we've had two.
Two
Third-
6-month
So
extensions.
it's the third
extensions.
term, okay.
So at the December, okay.
So we'll revisit that then, and I just don't wanna forget, it kinda crept up on me.
We'll go ahead and create a December folder and stick this in.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? All is in favor of approval of extending the Sugarloaf Volunteer Fire Department lease for an additional 6 months at the same terms, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And you might want to reach out to them and.
I will.
Okay, anything else? All right, I need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318, sub 11A6.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're going to go into closed session.